Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. I was inspired by something I saw in just images on the internet. Lots of times I will do that. I'll put an item into my internet search that says floral cards and then just put in images and see what I get back, and lots of times they aren't identified, so I have nobody to give credit to for this one, but I love the idea of it. So I put this card together and I created my own little envelope, and then I put some flowers in here, and they are a bit on the 3D side. I'll bring this up closer so you can see. Each one of these little layers has got some dimensionals. Looks like I need a dimensional under that one, here to kind of hold them in place, and it says celebrate here on the bottom, and then on the inside I just put another floral frame on the inside. So let me tell you what we need to use to make this card. My base is Whisper White, and I cut it 4 1/4 by 11, and then I've scored it at 5 1/2. So just need to burnish our card here. Then I have a piece of white that is 4 inches by 4 inches square, and we'll use our envelope punch board to make our little envelope here. Then I have a piece of scrap white for my sentiment. Then I have a piece of Calypso coral that is cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Then I have a piece of old olive, and this piece is cut 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. And then I have 2 pieces from the Petal, what's it called exactly? Petal Promenade Designer Series paper. And in the paper comes these frames that you can cut out. Let me show you some of the ones here. And there's also a strip along the edge that has these flowers in it, and we're going to use the strip along the edge. And these were set up like this with this paper on the edge, maybe like that. So by 12 by 12 piece of paper. And I'm using the larger of the frames here with the flowers around it. And so I'm going to use 2 of those frames. I have one for the outside, and this one is just a little bit different than this one in that I cut it so that there's no border around it. The thing is, the background is gray almost, and so I decided highlighting the gray didn't make me happy. So and then for the inside, I cut another frame that I just left a tiny little border around, and it ends up being 3 1/2 by 5, it looks like. And so this one is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4 to frame, and that's what I have as the decoration for the inside. You can write your message there. I thought that was a little different and very nice. So those are the pieces that we need, and then you need a pretty good sized piece of old olive to punch out your extra leaves here. And so let's just go ahead and get started and put this piece of paper together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. There's my base, which I'll set aside over here, and there's my card. And I'm using the envelope punch board today. And this punch board I have set up. This is 4 by 4. So I am setting this up at the 1 3/4 mark. And I'm punching and then using my tool here to score down the side. Then all you do is turn around your envelope or your piece of paper, and you line up that score line with this piece, and you punch and score again, and then just follow that routine all the way around your piece of paper so that you end up with the perfect measurements for a little tiny envelope. And there's all different sizes down here that are indicated, and I ended up cutting a smaller piece of paper than is indicated on here and just sort of figured out what it was I wanted on here. But I wanted a very tiny envelope, and there wasn't really such a thing. So that's all I'm using the envelope punch board for. And, well, that's not true. I'm going to round, this has got a corner rounder on it, and so I'm rounding all of the envelope edges here with my envelope punch board so that my envelope, when it goes together, will have all of those pieces cut and rounded. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to fold these edges in and burnish them a bit on both sides here. And then this is what I'm going to make the bottom of my little envelope. So I'm going to fold that up and do my burnishing. Then, as you can see, all but this little point is what covers the bottom part of the envelope. So I'm just going to use my snail and put some glue. In fact, where's my, here it is, my silicone mat. And I want to just put some glue along the edge there, avoiding that point so that I don't have glue that's going to come up and not work on my envelope. But there we go. And there we have our cute little envelope. And that's all there is to that. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my little piece of scrap here, and the stamp set that I took my sentiment from is from the Beautiful You stamp set, and it has this celebrate down here, and I thought that could be for all different kinds of things. Happy birthday, happy anniversary, any number of things. And so I have that there, and then I have my sentiment mounted here, and I'm going to use my Memento ink, and I'm going to ink this up really good. And you can check how inked up you are by turning your, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a shininess. See if I can get it right in the light. There you go. You can see how shiny that is. That means that ink is really all over that whole piece. Now I'm going to tuck it way over here in the corner, right along the bottom here. And I fooled around with different shapes for this, but in the end I like just a little simple banner here. And so I'm going to, I'm not very good with straight, so let me cap my ink and cut this little celebrate out here. That looks about right. And then I will cut this piece off here, roughly there, and I will cut a little banner tail on this piece. In fact, that's probably a little long, so I'm going to snip it off here and cut a little banner tail on the end here. And there we go. Our sentiment is all ready to go. Our envelope is ready to go. Now, the next thing I did, and I started this, and I thought I would finish it on camera for you. This is that strip on the piece of paper that has all of these frames on it. And so I cut one piece already that, and I just fussy cut around the edges here. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, some of the edges are a little hard to define. And so I just cut around these images of the flower here. And sometimes you can see the edge of the flowers and sometimes you can't. But just to have a little option here for tucking our flowers on the inside of the envelope. And you can see I'm not being terribly precise, nor am I taking a big amount of time to do this. That's all you really need to do. And so what I wanted to do was have the options of being able to set my flowers on the inside of my envelope. And I can see I can come all the way to there to cover my envelope. So I'm going to just cut this piece off here and take a little bit of this white flower up here at the top. And that looks like it'll fit right inside my envelope and give me my first layer. Then I can set this next to it here, and in fact what I think I'm going to do is cut around that edge there, and so that it's not such a flat edge, and have that be my second layer of flowers that goes in here. And I can see that if I just cut right up here, that piece will now fit and tuck right behind there and give us a second layer of flowers. There we go. And for our third, maybe just use this little piece right up here at the top, and I don't need to even come all the way across on that, and just cut those pieces out. And so this can just sit right up here and kind of complete our little bouquet coming out of the envelope here. Isn't that pretty? So then I'm going to take one, I want to make sure I get the right one here, one of my pieces, and I'm using the leaf punch that we have here, and I'm going to punch out leaves, and I've already got a bunch of them done, more than I need, because I wanted to be prepared and not take up the time with that kind of thing on the video. So now we've got these leaves, so I know this configuration works. So I'm going to turn these over, and I'm going to add a little bit of snail along, tape runner here, along the bottom of this, and set this right up along here. I think that worked. And then this piece we had coming up like this, so that this piece gets a little bit of snail along here to set in place like that. Okay, now then, in order for this to have a little bit of dimension, what I've done is I took some glue dot, not glue dots, I took some dimensionals. I'm using some of the mini dimensionals for this project, and what I'm going to do is just kind of pick some of these flowers up and tuck one of these dimensionals right underneath some of the flowers here, so that they stand up just a bit. And it's your choice kind of where you put these, but so that the flowers remain stable and give some measure of dimension. And then the same with this second layer here. Pick some of these up and put a couple of dimensionals behind it. And I found that it was much easier to build my flower bouquet and then stick it in the envelope rather than trying to build it as I go in the envelope. So I'm going to bring back my silicone mat here and lay it down, because some of these are going to go onto the envelope, and that way I can stick them onto my project and then stick them onto the envelope. And the same thing with this last one up top here, to just put a dimensional or two in here, and then maybe one or two on the back of this, and you get quite a bit of dimension. And I still think this will fit neatly in an envelope and be okay for mailing, particularly if you put another piece of cardstock over the front of this one when you put it in your envelope. Okay, so here we have our envelope, and I'm going to take this piece. I can see that I've got a little edge here that's going to have to come off, so I'm just going to round that a bit so that it will slide into my envelope. And what I want it to do is slide all the way down so that the edges are not visible inside the envelope. So there you can see I've come down to the point that I'm inside the envelope on all of these, and then these pieces just stick out. Now then, the next thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to save these little pieces because I might be able to use them on my next card. All right, then we have some leaves to kind of tuck around in here, and on this one I tucked multiple leaves, and I'm not sure I was crazy about it. So what I'm going to do is cut some of these leaves off and use single leaves to kind of stick in behind various places. And I'm just going to use some tape runner here to put a little glue on the back and then insert these so that they also are in front of some of the flowers and behind others. So you can easily tuck one here or there without having long stems to concern yourself with. So I'm thinking like right in there, and this one. So you may not need as many. I think in this first one I ended up using 3 or 4, but I'm thinking if you're just tucking 1 or 2 randomly here, you don't need nearly that many. So I'm going to use, I think, no more than 2 here, and just use the individual leaves and put some of these in place around randomly on my project. And there's some leaves already in the flowers that we fussy cut as well. So a little bit like this. I'm going to stick one right here in the front. And, well, it looks like maybe I don't want to get carried away with the leaves. By the same token, I want it to look reasonably right. So I'm going to stick one over here just to finish framing that out, and I think that's just fine. So I'll save those leaves for more of a project. So now we have our base, our sentiment, and we have our piece built here, our envelope full of flowers built. Now, what we're going to do is take the base, and we're going to put our Calypso coral piece down with just some tape runner, and this is cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So it's really meant to have not much of a border around the edge here, just letting the white peek through. And there we go. So that's all set. Then it is adding these pieces, And this is the one that I cut just a little bit differently here. And we're going to go ahead and put this on, and you can tell me if you like the border or without the border better. But centering this on here, and then mounting my envelope full of flowers kind of at an angle here, and I just put kind of a lot of tape runner on this, and I thought with this sticking up we didn't need much more in the way of dimension. So I'm laying this across here so that for the most part it's on the piece of the floral here. All right, there we go. And then I wanted to put my ribbon, and this is the sheer old olive ribbon. It's what it's called, sheer, and it's really not very sheer, but it is very narrow. And so I'm putting some tape on this and cutting off a piece and putting it down here on the bottom. And the only thing I would say is that it bothered me a little bit that the single strand of ribbon looks pretty insubstantial. So one of the things I thought I would try with this one is putting 2 layers on here. So let me add a little bit of tape and cut this one off. And then it's a matter of whether I want it shown as a thicker, but I'm thinking just a little kind of a margin between the 2 pieces, and then wrap this around the back side. And then what I did was I took this little sheer ribbon and I just made a simple single bow attached here. Let me get my ribbon all running the right direction here. All right, there we go. And that's a nice little bow. I will cut off the tails and then use a glue dot here that I'm going to kind of turn over on itself so that it doesn't stick out behind the bow, and maybe put that right down here between the 2 pieces, right in there. That kind of works for me. Okay, there we go. And then put my sentiment, and I used a couple of the mini dimensionals also on the back of my sentiment here, and put it in place along the bottom. And I did think about whether that was crowding the bottom or below, but I do think I like it better along the bottom here. So I'm going to move it all the way down to the bottom here and put my celebrate there. And then the only other thing I did with this was I did add a couple of rhinestones. And what I did was I put the smallest size right here on my sentiment. Then I put the next size one here on the edge of my envelope here, and then I put one of the larger ones kind of right up here just in the corner, just to add a little bit of finishing touch to that. So now we are ready to finish putting this together, at least on the exterior. And on this, because I've got all of these elements, I'm going to add my tape now to the base of my card, and not on the back of this, and set that in place. And you'll see it has a little bit more of a border on the sides than it does the top and bottom. and that works for me. Looks like it needs a little bit of tape right down here. I'm going to add just a little kind of right there. There we go. All right, so there's the front of our card done. Isn't that just pretty? I think it's so attractive. Now on the inside of the card, all I did was I left the frame on this one, just trimmed it close to the edge and mounted it on this piece of old olive so that it had a similar border all the way around. Added some tape to this here and added this to the interior of the card. And there you can see I put the whole thing on upside down. So I'm going to have to fix that. I can fix that off camera. And there we go. There's our piece on the inside. I wonder if I can get that. That I can. Yep. And put this back on so that it's on the right way around. Have you ever done that? There we go. So there we have our two cards. The one this was the original. This is the one we made together today. And I think it's a lovely little card, very different, very special for somebody. And again, the celebrate can be celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, just about anything. So that is the project for today. Now, anything that you see here can be purchased on my website, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net. And let's see, the prize draw for the month of September is the Dashing Deer Bundle out of the new holiday catalog. I decided on this project to go back to things in the main catalog, and the next project I will do will be out of the holiday catalog. And I thought I might just go back and forth because there's so many sets that I have wanted to work with more, or that I haven't worked with yet out of the annual catalog, that I thought that would be a fun way to do it. So there we go. That's our two cards for today, and that's it for me. I'll be back soon with more projects and more cards. Bye.